Now, once he got on, did he ever reach back to you?
Yeah, Jay had me come and do Summer Jam with him one year. I think that was the time when he had that.
Me and Pac went in the studio and did a song together. And then them little dudes.
Outlaws.
Yeah.
Outlaws.
They came, like, as soon as we got there, they came up to Pac talking about, yo, Lauryn Hill dissed you, Mobb Deep dissed you.
It is true. Tupac, he really had an issue with Jay Z. He really didn't like him then.
Not at all. I think that if Pac was alive, it would have been a whole different story. And as much money as Jay Z has, he still hasn't accomplished what Tupac accomplished before he was at 25 years old.
What if I told you, Jay Z wasn't the chosen one, he just played the game better than everyone else? That Tupac saw through it. That Big Daddy Kane helped build him only to be erased from the story. This isn't the version you've heard on podcasts or in rap documentaries. This is the side of hip-hop history they never wanted you to hear. And once you hear it, you can't unhear it. Big Daddy Kane just dropped a perspective-shifting truth bomb about Jay Z and Tupac and trust. No one saw this angle coming. Turns out, the story we've been fed all these years, it's missing some crucial chapters. Let's rewind. Most hip-hop heads know Kane played a major role in launching Jay Z's career. That part isn't up for debate. Back in the day, Jay was rolling with Kane freestyling on stage during his shows, holding it down in the cypher with Kane's crew. Kane didn't just open the mic for Jay, he opened the industry door. But as Jay-Z's star rose, something strange happened. Kane's name started fading from the narrative, like a mentor written out of the script. And here's where it gets layered. Kane's reflections don't just touch on Jay-Z, they ripple out to Tupac, too. While Kane was lifting Jay-Z up in the East, Pac was taking a different route, firing lyrical shots at the system, calling out industry phonies, and yes, throwing some pointed jabs at Jay himself. So, what is Kane really trying to say here? Is he suggesting that Jay-Z's rise wasn't just about talent and timing, but about quietly stepping over the very shoulders he stood on? Let's take it deeper. Kane made it clear. Tupac was a lyricist, not the kind to rattle off tongue-twisting metaphors, but one who poured raw truth into every bar. Pac's words cut deep and stuck with you. Meanwhile, in the early 90s, when Jay-Z was just another hungry MC with a dream, it was Kane who brought him along on his Chocolate City tour. Jay would spit fire during Kane's outfit changes, grabbing the mic, seizing moments. But Kane didn't stop there. He helped Jay shop his demo around, even recording tracks together and pitching them to labels. And according to Kane, that grind wasn't easy. The industry wasn't exactly feeling Jay's style at the time, his flow didn't click with execs. So now, decades later, Kane is raising a subtle but sharp question. Did Jay-Z build an empire while quietly letting the legacy of those who helped him fade into the background? Time to look beyond the myth and really examine the moves that shaped the game.
Jay-Z, I heard that no one really wanted to sign him when you were shopping him around the record labels. Is that true?
Yeah. This was, I want to say, I don't know, 90, 91 maybe. We was, we recorded some songs, probably about 4 or 5 songs on Jay-Z, and shopped them to several different record labels.
Big Daddy Kane sets the record straight. Jay-Z, Tupac, and the hidden blueprint of hip-hop in a rare and revealing interview. Big Daddy Kane, one of hip-hop's true pioneers, peeled back the curtain on a chapter of the culture that's often overlooked or underplayed. The mainstream narrative around Jay-Z's rise to superstardom typically starts somewhere around Reasonable Doubt or Rockefeller Records. But according to Kane, the real story starts earlier, much earlier, and he was there, not as a distant observer, but as a critical architect. Before the platinum plaques, business ventures, and billionaire status, Jay-Z was just a young, hungry MC from Brooklyn trying to make his mark. And while many now recognize him as one of the greatest of all time, there was a point when nobody, not the labels, not the press, not even the local radio stations, believed in him. Nobody, that is, except Big Daddy Kane. I saw something in Jay that a lot of people missed, Kane said, looking back on those formative years. His cadence, his wit, the way he structured his rhymes, it was already there. It just needed the right spotlight. And Kane didn't just offer words of encouragement. He put action behind his belief. At a time when stages were hard to come by and cosigns could make or break a career, Kane brought Jay-Z on tour during his Chocolate City run. allowing the then-unknown rapper to share the mic and perform in front of packed crowds across the country. It was on those stages, Kane says, that Jay began sharpening his performance skills, building confidence, and learning the ropes from someone who had already climbed the ranks of hip-hop royalty. But Kane's mentorship didn't stop at stage time. He also helped shop Jay Z's early demos to record labels, many of which passed. It's almost hard to fathom now, but Jay Z, the mogul, was once seen as a risk too big to bet on. Labels didn't know what to do with him, Kane recalled. They thought his style was too fast, too complex, but that's what made him special. In lifting the veil on this underreported history, Kane isn't trying to take credit, he's trying to preserve accuracy. He's deeply aware of how stories get flattened over time, how key players and pivotal moments can be erased or rewritten in the haze of nostalgia and myth-making. And Kane didn't stop with Jay Z. He also opened up about Tupac, another towering figure whose legacy, Kane feels, is often reduced to the extremes of either martyrdom or menace. Kane remembers Pac not just as a revolutionary firebrand, but as a deeply thoughtful artist with layers the public rarely got to see. He was passionate, yeah, but he also listened. He learned, Kane said. He wasn't just yelling to make noise. He was searching for truth. What Kane ultimately offers is not just revisionist history, but real history, a reminder that hip-hop didn't happen in a vacuum, that every superstar stood on someone's shoulders, that behind every origin story is another story, quieter but just as important. For Jay Z, that story includes a Brooklyn legend named Big Daddy Kane, who didn't just see the future, helped build it. But here's where the timeline gets complicated. Jay Z's signature flow, thus, slick, fast-paced, confident delivery echoes Kane's own style from back in the day. Yet when Jay later told his story, the full depth of that mentorship was barely mentioned. In his book Decoded, Jay acknowledges Kane's influence mostly around performance and pacing, but it's more of a quick acknowledgement than heartfelt appreciation. That silence didn't go unnoticed. Then there's Do It Again. Jay drops the line, "I've seen the same *T happen to Kane, 3 cuts in your eyebrows, trying to wild out." For those in the know, that hit different. Kane's 3 eyebrow slits were iconic, a trademark of his image in the late 80s and early 90s. Some listeners saw that line not as homage, but as a subtle jab. Even Angie Martinez speculated on her radio show that it might be a diss. Kane brushed it off publicly, but that didn't erase the tension. At the same time Kane was receding from the spotlight, Tupac was stepping forward, taking direct aim at the very industry dynamics Kane now hints at. Pac wasn't shy, he called out inauthenticity, fake personas, and the shift from artistry to flash. And as Jay-Z's name began to circulate, Pac had his reservations. Some old rumors even suggested Jay felt threatened by Pac not because of lyrical skill, but because Pac had that raw, magnetic presence that couldn't be duplicated. Eventually, the tension became real. Jay Z and Tupac had a brief but genuine beef near the end of Pac's life. It was sparked, in part, by Brooklyn's finest, Jay Z's 1996 collab with Biggie on Reasonable Doubt. That track, legendary as it is, poured gasoline on the already burning East Coast-West Coast feud. Irv Gotti, who was working closely with Jay at the time, later said he warned Jay not to do the song with Biggie. Not because the track wasn't dopey, but because of the optics. Irv single quotes Arv's advice was strategic. "Before we conquer the world, we have to conquer the West Coast. But first, we need to own New York. And Biggie already owns Brooklyn." In Irv's eyes, teaming up with Big too soon would make Jay look like the little brother tagging along, not the king in the making. Meanwhile, the Pac-Biggie relationship was falling apart. They had once been allies, but everything changed in 1994 when Pac was shot 5 times at Quad Studios. He believed Biggie and Diddy knew something about it, and that silence was a betrayal he could never forgive. Biggie, for his part, always denied involvement. Zooming out, Kane's reflection reveals a pattern: industry gatekeeping, shifting allegiances, and forgotten mentors. Jay-Z's legacy is legendary, no doubt, but the full story, as Kane sees it, includes the voices of those who helped lay the foundation and who were slowly written out of the frame. The story of Jay Z, Tupac, and Biggie is far more layered than most fans realize, and Big Daddy Kane's recent reflections have reopened a fascinating, complicated chapter in hip-hop's evolution. After the infamous Quad Studios shooting in 1994 where Tupac was shot 5 times, Pac grew convinced that Biggie and his circle knew more than they let on. Whether it was street whispers about extortion or just silence when it mattered, Pac felt betrayed. That moment ignited a bitter rivalry between two once friendly giants. Public shots followed. Trust shattered. Then came a spark that only fueled the fire. Biggie dropped Who Shot Ya, a track many believed was aimed directly at Pac, even if he never confirmed it. Around that same time, Jay Z was preparing to release Brooklyn's Finest, his high-profile collaboration with Biggie on Reasonable Doubt. Industry insiders, like Irv Gotti, urged Jay to hold off. The East Coast-West Coast war was already explosive, and Irv feared that aligning with Big would position Jay as Biggie's sidekick in an increasingly volatile climate. Jay didn't listen. He released Brooklyn's Finest. And in it, Biggie delivered a bar that stoked the flames even more. If Faye had twins, she'd probably have two Pacs. A direct, almost mocking reference to the swirling rumors about Tupac and Faith Evans, and Jay was on the track, co-signing it whether intentionally or not. That, according to many, was the moment Pac turned his gaze toward Jay. From there, Tupac didn't hold back. On tracks like Bomb First, My Second Reply, and F***, Friend**, he started taking shots at Jay Z. Fans were bracing for Jay to respond with a full-on diss of his own, but it never hit the airwaves. Here's the twist. Jay Z did write a response. A song called Scathing, described by insiders as a ruthless diss aimed squarely at Pac. According to DJ Clark Kent, Jay even performed it live after Tupac had been killed. It happened at the Apollo Theater, and those who were there said it was brutal. Jay prefaced the performance by saying, "No disrespect to the dead, but you just can't say whatever to me." The track never saw an official release, but word of that moment spread fast, so why perform a diss track only after Pac had passed? Some claim it was Jay's way of releasing pent-up frustration. Others say it came from fear of going toe-to-toe with an icon like Tupac while he was still alive. Gene Deal, Diddy's former bodyguard, later told a story that added weight to that idea. According to Deal, Jay once stayed holed up in his Las Vegas hotel room, refusing to come out for a scheduled performance because Tupac and his crew were in town. Allegedly, Jay wasn't going anywhere until he got clearance, a green light ensuring it was safe. To this day, some fans call Jay Z out for never engaging Tupac directly in battle, accusing him of playing it safe. But others say that Jay's strategy was more calculated, subtle jabs, subliminals, indirect warfare. Rappers from that era say Jay envied Pac's unteachable charisma. Jay had the lyrical precision, sure, but Pac had the it factor. He could captivate a crowd with just his energy, his presence, and that's something Jay reportedly knew he couldn't match. Even Nas hinted in later interviews that Jay carried a grudge not just against Pac, but also against the way Biggie's and Pac's legacies loomed so large over everything that came after. In the end, the legacy wars weren't just about rhymes, they were about identity, power, and the invisible chess game being played behind every bar. Jay Z once sat down with Nas and said something so wild, even Nas had to do a double take. According to an old Vibe interview, Jay told Nas that not only was he better than Biggie, but that Tupac and DMX weren't even lyricists. Nas pushed back hard. To him, Tupac wasn't just a rapper, he was the greatest, period. And that wasn't the only moment that left fans questioning Jay's loyalty or his intentions. For years, people have whispered about his close relationship with Diddy, even as allegations swirled tying Diddy to Tupac's murder. After Pac and Biggie were gone, Diddy was one of the first to crown Jay-Z as their successor, almost as if the torch had already been passed. "You filled them shoes, bro," Diddy once said in an interview, praising Jay for stepping up after Big and Pac were gone. "They had the game on lock, and you came in and kept it fly, kept the art alive." Diddy's words made it clear. Jay wasn't just another rapper on the rise, he was seen as the one to carry the legacy forward. But many couldn't help but notice the irony. Jay seemed to inherit the spotlight only after both of the game's brightest stars had been silenced, Jay-Z, Diddy, and the Cassie lawsuit. When loyalty turns to distance for years, Jay-Z and Diddy stood side by side as two of hip-hop's most powerful moguls, titans of industry, who parlayed their music careers into global empires. From the outside, they seemed like brothers in arms. Whether it was sharing stages, throwing lavish parties, or publicly praising each other's business acumen, their bond appeared rock solid. Jay even went as far as calling Diddy one of his mentors, someone who helped pave the way. But that image didn't age well, especially not after 2023. The shift came fast and hard after Cassie, Diddy's longtime partner and former protege, filed a bombshell lawsuit that would send shockwaves across the music industry. Her allegations were graphic, chilling, and deeply disturbing. Abuse, control, manipulation claims that not only targeted Diddy's character but shook the foundation of his legacy. For years, Diddy had weathered whispers, rumors of payoffs, NDA settlements, troubling behavior behind closed doors. None of it ever seemed to stick. And through it all, Jay Z never publicly wavered. Even as others quietly distanced themselves, Jay continued to associate with him, collaborate with him, and be photographed alongside him. His silence was interpreted by some as loyalty, by others as complicity. But after the Cassie lawsuit cracked everything wide open, and after a wave of public backlash and corporate fallout began to erode Diddy's brand, Jay's tone shifted. Suddenly, he wasn't standing with Diddy anymore. He wasn't even standing near him. In interviews and public appearances that followed, Jay subtly began to rewrite their history. He downplayed the relationship, describing it as more professional than personal, even going so far as to suggest they hadn't been close in years. Gone was the narrative of brotherhood and mutual admiration. In its place, strategic detachment. It was a sharp pivot, and one that didn't go unnoticed. Fans and critics alike took to social media to call out the sudden change. Jay switched up real quick. One tweet read, "He was at every Diddy party for the last 2 decades. Now he barely knows the man." Others speculated that Jay's silence during the height of the allegations and his later disavowal was less about moral clarity and more about protecting his brand, and in some ways, they weren't wrong. Jay Z has built his empire on control of his image, his partnerships, his legacy. Being tethered to Diddy during one of the biggest scandals in modern hip-hop history, that was a liability he couldn't afford, so he stepped back. Quietly, then publicly, and when he finally spoke, it was with surgical precision, but for many, it raised uncomfortable questions. Where does loyalty end and self-preservation begin? What does it mean when silence lasts until it's safe to speak? In the end, the fallout didn't just expose Diddy, it peeled back layers on everyone around him, forcing the culture to confront not just what was said, but what was allowed. So what's really going on here? Big Daddy Kane, one of the pioneers who gave Jay his first real shot, has started speaking out, his tone quiet but loaded with meaning. He's hinting at more than just oversight. He's talking about betrayal, about being erased from a narrative he helped build, and when you zoom out, the pattern becomes clearer. Tupac's warnings, Kane's disappointment, and Jay's rise through silence, strategy, and shadow moves. Jay Z is undeniably brilliant, one of the sharpest minds hip-hop has ever seen, but his story, when told through the eyes of those who were there early on, sounds less like a solo climb and more like a careful navigation. Some would call it chess. Others might call it cold-blooded. So here's the real question. Was Jay Z just playing the game smarter than everyone else? Or did he step on people, mentors, legends, and peers to get to the top? Did he forget who opened the door for him when he was still knocking? And was he really intimidated by Tupac so much so that he kept his diss track in the vault until after Pac was gone? Let me know what you think in the comments. Was this just hip-hop politics ... or something deeper?